Well, hello there. I have something special for you guys today. So, to start, let's talk about the election that's coming up on the 20th of September. There's been rumblings, like I said in a previous video, of it not being on the 20th, instead being on the 21st. This is not true. That's when the poll numbers are published. So go out and vote on the 20th. If you do plan to vote, make sure you have a plan in place. So know when you're going to be going, how long it's going to take you about. Try to go earlier in the day rather than later, because the later you go, the more crowded it will be. And try to carpool. Bring as many people with you to vote at the same time as you can. And I encourage everybody, whether you're voting for me or anybody else, to vote along with your conscience. Vote for what you believe in, not for what you think will win. It's important to make sure your ideas are represented rather than simply being sidelined and ignored because you think that the ideal candidate for you won't win. Now, with that in mind, let's talk about elections and interference. From the True North publication, Ottawa to suffer if Conservatives elected, China threatens. They cite a, Global Times article. This is, the Global Times is a Chinese state-run media piece. Now, reading through the article. The Chinese regime is warning of counterstrikes against Canada if a Conservative government is elected next week. Chinese Politburo mouthpiece Global Times published an article last week showering threats from officials at China's state-run China Foreign Affairs University. This is where Len Daozhan came from. I think that's his name. He's the one who had a press conference talking about their friends in the White House shortly after Biden was elected. Quote, if the Canadian government puts those hawkish words into action, it will invite counterstrikes from China, and Ottawa is the one to suffer, end quote. The report said of the Conservative Party's tough line on China. Now, the Conservatives are not tough on China, by my standards. My standards are, like, closed borders with China, no more movement of people, no more movement of goods. Fuck them. Punish them as much as possible. But I'm also much more hawkish than the average person when it comes to China. I see them as a massive existential threat to Canada and our way of life. Continuing on. Last month, China's ambassador to Canada, Kang Pei-wu, took aim at the Conservatives' Tough on China platform in a Hill Times interview. Quote, some people put their personal political interests above the interests of the Canadian people as a whole and hype issues related to China, Kang said of O'Toole. Now, it's funny that the Chinese say that you're overhyping what the Chinese are doing in your country when the Chinese are actively threatening you. It's very, very funny and very, very interesting. Continuing on, a few weeks prior, O'Toole revealed during a press conference that he does not think the Trudeau government has what it takes to prevent foreign interference in the 2021 election. You don't say! You don't say! China interfering in our election. The Liberals don't have the strength to stop it. You don't say. Is that obvious enough for you? Quote, I do think there's risks of foreign interference, particularly with what we've seen happen in other democracies, allies of Canada. This is referring to the United States in 2016 and 2020. 2016. What happened in 2016? The Ukrainians tried to meddle with the US election on behalf of the Democrats. What happened in 2020? Wow, we're not allowed to talk about that anymore now, are we? And who's stopping us from talking about that? Big international social media companies. I wonder who they're in bed with. Google. I wonder who they're working with. I wonder what country they're working with actively to bring into their market. I wonder. Quote, we've seen interference from bad actors, and I feel that Mr. Trudeau hasn't been doing enough in this situation. This is not the first time that China has indicated preference for a Liberal government over a Conservative one. In 2019, Trudeau's hand-picked former ambassador for China, John McCullum, warned Chinese media that if China kept threatening Canada, it would lead to a Conservative victory, which would be a disadvantage to China. Oh my god! They just admit it! They just admit that the Liberals work with the Chinese. Outright. No other question. No questions asked. There's nothing else here. The Chinese government and the Liberal government are working together to fuck over everybody else in Canada. And if the Chinese go and act too aggressive towards Canada, then the Conservatives will win. Because the Canadian people are not pro-Chinese. We do not want the Chinese to rule over us. We want to be our own country. Just like we don't want the Americans to rule over us. Continuing on. Quote, anything that is more negative against Canada will help the Conservatives, who are much less friendly to China than the Liberals. This is a quote from the Liberal ambassador to China, saying the Liberals are friendly to China. The Liberals work with China. The Liberals are in bed with China, and the Liberals admit it. Think about that. The Liberals are admitting in these quotes that they actively work with the Chinese Communist Party against your best interests. Let that sit. Let that sink in. McCullum was removed from his post shortly after the incident, as he should be. Now, with this, I have to talk about foreign interference in elections. We don't want foreign interference in our elections or in our culture. And that's the big problem that's going on right now. We have interference in our elections, in our culture, in every single facet of our way of life. We are adopting Chinese systems. Our social credit system, we're adopting a social credit system. We are moving towards having a papers, please based society. These are facets of authoritarian regimes. We do not want to become like China. China is ironically going to be more liberal than us at this rate. Because we are going further than ever before. You know, it's interesting. It's like this one grand experiment to look at what happens when you reintroduce authoritarianism to a population that's fought against it. I guess it just means that when you reintroduce it after 60 years, everybody just licks the boot and says, harder, daddy. I don't know. All I can say is vote with your conscience. Vote against what you think is bad and for what you think is good. If you don't want the Chinese to be running your country, I suggest voting not liberal. Probably not NDP either, but it's hard to say. It's up to you to make that choice. It's up to you to make the decision. Go vote on election day. Have a wonderful day.